morning's session. So, on behalf of Project Laan, thank you so much for being here with us today. To our participants as well as our esteemed panelists and moderator, welcome to Project Laan's Talab session, serving on the road less traveled, walking with the excluded through the eyes of doctors to the barrios. So this year's Talab theme, Walking with the Excluded, reminds us of our shared responsibility to listen to and walk alongside those often left behind, especially in the pursuit of just and equitable healthcare. Today's session brings this theme to life through the stories of our doctors to the barrios who have devoted themselves to serving communities in some of the most far-flung areas of the Philippines. Through their experiences, we'll gain a deeper understanding of what it means to bridge gaps in healthcare and to stand in solidarity with the underserved. So to officially begin this morning's program, may we call on Rona Barroso, my fellow Associate Vice President for Discourse and Relations, for the opening remarks.
So hello, good morning everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you as well to our host for that wonderful introduction. On behalf of Project Laan, I'd like to extend our warmest welcome to our participants and guests here today. We're deeply grateful that you could join us for this morning session of Talab 2025, serving on the road less traveled, walking with the excluded through the eyes of doctors to the barrio. As shared earlier, this year's Talab theme, Walking with the Excluded, challenges us to go beyond awareness, to reflect on what it truly means to accompany communities that continue to be left at the margins. For Project Laan, this idea resonates strongly with what we stand for. At its core, our organization seeks to fight poverty through health. We recognize that exclusion in health goes beyond the lack of hospitals or medicine. It's rooted in systems, in geography, and in long-standing inequities. That's why we believe conversations like this matter. They help us see health not just as a technical issue, but as a shared human concern. Through today's panel discussion, we hope to shed light on what it means to walk with the excluded, not from a distance, but side by side. Our panelists embody this spirit through their work as doctors to the barrios, who serve as lifelines for communities where healthcare is hardest to reach. We are truly honored to have with us this morning Dr. Albert Antonio, a public health physician and health systems consultant, formerly a doctor to the barrio from 2021 to 2024 in Lanuza, Surigao del Sur. Dr. Sarah Reem Hesham Mohamed Haddad, Senior Technical Specialist at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies and former DTTB from 2021 to 2024 in San Jose, Dinagat Islands. Dr. Onica Bernice Hara, Rural Health Physician under the City Government of Marikina and former DTTB from 2020 to 2023 in Panugulan, Polillo Islands, Quezon. Dr. Paige Recasata, Pathology Resident at Jose R. Reyes Memorial Medical Center and former DTTB from 2019 to 2021 in Lugos, Sulu. Guiding our discussion is our moderator, Dr. Raymond John Nugget, Public and Mental Health Consultant at the Institute of Politics and Governance and founder of the Youth for Mental Health Coalition. With his extensive experience in policy, advocacy, and governance, Dr. RJ continues to be a strong voice for inclusive and participatory health reform. We're deeply grateful to all our panelists and to Dr. RJ for coming here to share your insights with us today. As we listen to their stories, may we be reminded that walking with the excluded begins with listening, with understanding the realities of those often left behind, and finding ways to act together towards a more just and compassionate health system. Once again, welcome and thank you for being here. And now to officially begin our conversation, please join me in welcoming our moderator, Dr. Raymond John Nugget.
Maraming salamat, Rona. And good morning, everyone. Good morning. Parang medyo inaantok pa tayo. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, sino dito yung nakarinig na 80% of our health outcomes are shaped by factors outside of healthcare? One? Dalawa?
Mga
Wala mga
students ni
health
Sarah.
side. No, so usually sinasabi natin yun, no, na parang 80% ay hindi siya dependent on health service delivery. No? So a big part of our health is actually dependent on the social determinants. No? So, actually, lagi ko siyang narinig. Kaya kahapon, paano tinry ko i-search, ano ba talagang source nun? Paano ba kinompute yung 80%, 20%? And I saw this website, no? And that talked about the 2014 Country Health Rankings Model of Health. So it was developed by the University of Wisconsin. And they said there that 40% are related to social and economic factors, 30% are related to our health behaviors, tapos 10% are related to our physical environment. So 20% lang doon, yung directly we can attribute to health service delivery. That's why it's very important to talk about the different determinants. Social, right now we have also the political and commercial determinants of health. So interesting yung mga frameworks na lumalabas ngayon. And then it also provides us with different lenses on how we view health inequities. So dahil nga maraming factors, there can be different points where inequity can happen. Maraming mga social divides tayong pwedeng makonsider as we work with communities. And today, we're very fortunate, kasi nga we have here the different doctors to the barrios that work with communities and who will share their experiences and learnings as we learn yung about our health system and how we can apply it in our future practice. So usually yung mga health inequities are best shared through stories. So in my experience as a public health professional, most of my work has been dealing with people in marginalized sectors, people who use drugs, people living with HIV. But for today, we will focus on people or communities that are in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. So yun yung former na tawag, or they call it GIDA. So right now, the Department of Health has also reframed it. They don't call it GIDA anymore. They call it unserved and underserved areas. So I think very important yung shift na yun kasi hindi na tayo nag-focus doon sa ano yung wala doon sa community, but rather we're focusing now on what can be done to actually improve the health outcomes of these populations. So yun yung context siguro natin for this discussion. And we will actually divide it into different segments. So first, we will talk about ano yung mga different ways on how inequity happens. And then we will talk about what are the different responses. And then later on, may call to action rin tayo. What can students or future health professionals or even non-health people can do to support health equity. So with that, I invite everyone to join us in our conversation. So again, I'd like to introduce si Doc Sarah. Talapakan natin si Doc Sarah. Si Doc Albert. Doc Ridge. And Doc Lisa. And to kickstart siguro this conversation, I'd like to give a quick round siguro for them to introduce their motivations in terms of working with marginalized groups. And siguro a sneak peek kung ano ginawa nila when they were doctors to the barrios. Ayan. So I'll start with Doc Sarah.
Hello. Hello. Good morning, everyone. I am Sarah. If I have students here, I think I have some students here. So I teach global health also. But I am currently a senior technical specialist, Philippine Institute for Development Studies. But I was previously Dr. to the barrios for 3 years in San Jose de Naguilitas. So what really, I couldn't really pinpoint a single point in time where I said I wanted to go into public health. I think it was a multitude of experiences. It was mainly being at Ateneo, I think, because as health sci, we were always taught systems thinking. Na health is not just the availability of doctors, it's not medical. So we were always taught na it's always the systems that surround our governments, our societies, and that really promote exclusion in society. So that was always my framework of how I thought about health. And I think a big part also of why I chose to go into public health was Laan, because I was also Laan before. So I think the theory that I got from the classroom, I was able to see in person when I talked to communities. And then firsthand, I would hear their stories of being plunged into poverty because of medical bills, etc. So I always thought that was unfair, that was unjust, and very preventable. The fact that they get sick more than those in higher socioeconomic classes in our society. Those who are excluded, they get sick more, and when they do get sick, they suffer more, the consequences of being sick. So I always thought that was very unjust. And I think it's also very personal for me because when my mom got sick, we had to also navigate the health system, and it's really hard. Being sick in the Philippines is very, very hard, especially if you're not well off. So with that first-hand experience, I think that's how I thought that maybe public health is my sort of vocation, something that gives sort of meaning to what I do. So that's how I started, I think.
Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Alberto Antonio Jr., but you can call me Albert. I was also a product of the Ateneo. I graduated in 2014 in Health Sciences. And I was also part of, I was Kite Ateneo. And I think that was one of my first exposures for the hospital setting. So Kite Ateneo pala is an art in Ateneo that goes to hospitals to conduct psychosocial therapy to pediatric patients with chronic illnesses. Anyway, so because of immersion in Kite settings in the hospitals, I saw the realities of those who are underserved or unserved. But then when I graduated college, I didn't proceed to med school directly. I joined what we call the Jesuit Volunteers Philippines, or the JVP. Nakikita niyo yata yun sa MVP room, no? And I was assigned as a community organizer in Borongan City, Eastern Samar. So that was in 2014, right after the biggest typhoon to ever wreck the country, which was Typhoon Yolanda. So they were looking for volunteers. Hindi ko po gusto mag-med school na, pero dahil nakita ko yung state of public health sa province, like yung mga barangay health stations na talagang 4 posts lang tas kubo. Tapos yung mga barangay health workers na talagang kulang pa sa capacity training, and all the systems that were pushing the patients or the residents doon downwards, na hindi sila makaakyat. So yun yung mga nakikita ko. And realize ko na, shucks, I wanted to become a doctor, but not just a doctor. I want to go to public health because of the realities there. So because of that, it was such a grounding, immersive experience for me to develop ko yung systems goggles na nakikita ko na lang lahat kung ano yung political, governance, structural, that give the society the way it is right now in terms of health. So kaya ako nag-med school sa ASMPH. And because of my experiences also with a strong public health module in ASMPH, naging automatic na agad sa akin na after boards, gusto ko mag-doctor to the bar. Parang gusto ko pang isipin na, mag-pedia kaya ako, o kaya OFTA, o kaya ENT. But it was a really no-brainer question na in a heartbeat, I chose to become a doctor to the bar. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Paige. I am currently a pathology resident in Jose Reyes, which is right beside POH. So you would think parang it's a bit strange for me to choose a field that's kind of the opposite of like public health, because in pathology we're mostly confined to the grossing room or the laboratory, and it's not really patient facing. But growing up, I think kind of with like Doc Sarah, my motivations were more on the personal side. I always wanted to become a doctor, but I also knew that I didn't want to be confined within the four walls of the hospital or the laboratory. So I wanted to be a forensic pathologist, so that's why I chose pathology. So even in choosing my residency or my current field now, I didn't want to be confined also in the lab. So with forensic pathology or field, most of the time. Initially, I didn't know about the Doctors of the Bars program until clerkship. So my school also didn't really focus so much, my med school didn't really focus so much on public health. So I didn't have the same like experiences as Doc Albert and Doc Sarah, where they were exposed to the communities as much. But I did want to join the Doctors Without Borders eventually. But during clerkship, I found out about the Doctors Without Borders program, and I told myself that it felt wrong to like go into pathology or go into residency or like join like a global program without understanding public health in the local level. So during clerkship and during internship, doon ko talaga naisip na okay, this is what I wanted to do. So I even like fought with my parents all the time because they didn't want me to join the DPP because they wanted like the straight path and the linear path of medicine na residency agad, ganyan. But you know, eventually like I convinced them, and it's something that like I don't regret pa din choosing the program kahit na sobrang daming not so nice experiences in the field. It's really something that if you ask me, if we turn back time and then ask me if I would choose that path again, I would. It's not something that I regret. Ilang, so yeah, that's it.
Siguro naman ako. Hi, I'm Mika. So I'll be the lighter. I mean, feeling ko ako yung pinaka different yung journey. Is there someone who doesn't understand Filipino here? Really? Okay. Sige, ganito. I wish, no? Actually, I really prepared an answer for this. Kaya lang, na-realize ko, it's not something na pang Miss Universe dapat. No? Thank you for that question. Ako yung naligaw. Hindi, truthfully, I wish na I had the lens of Sarah and Doc Albert na early on gusto ko na mag-public health. I was one of those doctors who viewed public health as a field na pag public health yan, second-class physician. Oo. May mga ganon. Kasi the school where I went to is very traditional. Paano ba siya? Kung hindi ka specialist, you did not made it in life. Parang ganon. So, yeah, even if when I was a DTTV, I had this professor kasi I'm the type of a student na pag masungit yung professor, favorite ko yun. Kasi, pag sinundan mo siya, they will open doors for you. Akala mo, pag kayong mga masusungit na professors, sila yung mga talagang mangda-down sa'yo. No. Kasi pag nakuha mo ang loob nila, and nakita nila na in training, they will open gates for you afterwards. Na, ay, kilala ka ni Doc ganyan. So, ako, sumusunod talaga ako dun sa mga terror na prof. And then, one day, I went with my parents for a check-up, syempre. Isang, parang, sinasabi nila na, oh, asan ka na? Sabi ko, TV po ako. Sabi niya, alam mo, sayang ka. Grabe yung potential mo, sayang ka talaga. So for them, diba, no, yun yung tingin talaga nila. Tumatak sa akin yun na sinasabi nila na sayang ako because I did not get into a specialty that I wanted, no, before. Kasi before I went into a DTTV, I was a surgery resident sa isang, diba, naligaw talaga tayo, guys! I was a surgery resident before, ang layo-layo niya sa public health. But it helped a lot during the time, yung skills I honed from surgery, helped a lot during the time na nandun ako sa area ko kasi ang dami kong pwedeng gawin. Like, kung hindi ako nag-training, hindi ako skilled enough to do things like that. Like, responding to trauma, responding to yung mga napapanood sa TV, tension yung thorax, mga ganyan. Kasi medyo ma-armed conflict dun sa area ko. But I had that advantage when I was deployed. Kaya lang ako nag-DTTV kasi there's this review center. Hindi natin ipa-plug kasi hindi naman tayo. May review center kung saan ako nag-review. Tapos, hello po, Doc Rolly. Tapos may nag-talk doon. Tapos ang sabi niya, you will have 3 years of work. Sure na may work ka unless mag-quit ka. And then you have a master's from UP. Nung panahon namin, it's from UP. Tapos, yung compensation is okay, more than okay. And then, meron ka pang honorarium to support your daily needs. As a first-gen physician, na wala akong, like, well, may mga kamag-anak kami in the field, but we're not really that, like, close, no? Pero as an ancestor, if you will, it's very hard to establish in medicine. I realized when I was in residency na kahit hindi ako kumain for the next 4 or 5 years, all the salary that I have will not be enough to buy stocks in specific hospitals for me to start years after. So I had to find a career na I can establish myself on an economic side na okay, this would be something that I would really parang thrive in. And then yun, naligaw ako sa DTTV and I ended up loving it. Nakakatuwa siya. Kasi yung mommy, siya yung ika-counsel mo. Yung couple, ikakasal, ika-counsel mo sila. Kung paano sila mag-baby. And then yung mommy, pag nabuntis siya, ikaw yung magtitingin dun sa pregnancy niya. Pag nanganak, ikaw ang magpapaanak sa line-in kasi wala kang midwife. Ikaw ang magpapaanak. After nun, ikaw ang magtuturo ng bakuna for a year. And then, pag nag-elementary na siya, ikaw ang magde-deworm. Pagdating sa bahay, ikaw ang maglilinis ng well, ng balon. Para yung water na iinumin nila is safe. You will ensure na bawat bahay is may CR para zero ang open defecation, para hindi makocontaminate ang dagat at ang farming nila ng seaweed is hindi contaminated. So, it's a whole of system na nakita ko siya during DTTV na, ay, ang saya pala. That's why, years after I graduated, I pursued this career in public health. Yan lang.
Maraming salamat, Doc, so for sharing yung experience niyo as DTTVs. And I think it's very clear, no, that they specifically acted on a specific pain point that they experienced, either from personal stories or minsan nawawala. Pero I think it doesn't mean na forever lost tayo. Sometimes it also makes sense doon sa journey natin along the way. No? So with that, I'd like to zero in siguro doon sa experience ninyo working with people who are excluded, no, from society. So, si Doc Albert has extensive experience working with local health systems. So, meron work with WHO, Johns Hopkins, no, and also with Magazine right now. So, I'd like to ask siguro si Doc Albert kung ano yung iba't ibang forms of exclusion that you've seen in your different lines of work.
Thank you very much. Forms of exclusion is an overwhelming discussion. Meron kang isang course on global health that will teach about it kasi talagang malawak siya. For context, I was assigned as the only doctor to Lanuza, which is a 4th-class municipality of Surigao del Sur, which is the 3rd poorest province of Caraga region, which is the 2nd poorest region in the whole country. So talagang mahirap yung mga pasyente namin doon. And that in itself, parang kawawa ka agad kung pinanganak ka doon. May nag-i-English ba? Exclusion. Doc RJ was mentioning about 50% already of 50% of your health outcomes already depends on your zip code or where you're born. So make 20% pa for the physical, so anyway. The socio-economic position of the patients in Lanuza really emphasizes the exclusion. So I think I would share the 3 points. One is the social class, the next is gender, and the next is ethnicity. First is for the social class, meron kasi kaming YUA, or your far-flung community, that we have to ride a motorcycle going there. So that would take around 2 hours. And the road going there is so dangerous, it's so treacherous, and ulit kami nahuhulog sa motor kasi talagang muddy siya at delikado. So, I was an idealistic doctor then. Universal healthcare, we want to make health equitable with access to care to the underprivileged. No? but it was so hard doing that. We have to bring our health services there because they couldn't go to us. Kailangan ko nila magbayad ng 500 pesos just to ride a motorcycle to reach our health center. So when I was going to those far-flung communities, parang, wow, delikado siya. Paano kung may nanganganak? What if there's an imminent delivery? Hindi na sila manganganak sa baba. We'll just have home deliveries, which is also very dangerous. What if there's a stroke? Or what if there's a heart attack? They won't go down anymore. Tatanggapin na lang nila. They will just accept that it will happen in their areas. And then that's it. So, just because you were born there, you have less access to health already. Next is if you were born there and you were a woman, mas delikado pa yun. So gender is such a big factor, especially for mothers. I had patients that are my age, 32, 53. Pero 5, 6, 7 na ang children niya. No? And then we would ask na, ma'am, I think it's time to consider, it's time to consider family planning already kasi it gets dangerous the more children that you have pa. And then, how are you going to take care of those na nandun na, yung mga bata? No? And then the mom would say, Doc, depende kasi sa asawa ko. You know, say, bakit? Bakit depende sa asawa mo? It's your body, that's your choice, no? Pero for them, the husband will control the family planning if magka-family planning. So gusto lang nilang natural method. Or wala nga talaga. No? And sometimes in our discussions, no, we would ask why they would subscribe to that. Kasi daw kapag nag-family planning, bumababa daw ang libido ng mga babae. So kapag daw bumaba ang libido ng mga babae, yung mga husband, mangangaliwa. At pag mangaliwa sila, masisira yung pamilya. So walang magpapakain sa kanila. The power, the gender balance. No? So if you were born as a woman in that far-flung community, talo ka talaga. And then sometimes, if you are an IT, may sarili din siyang layer, another nuance if you are an IT, because they have practices that are so difficult and contrary to the health practices. For example, if you, as a woman, again, babae na naman, or adolescent, mag-period na siya, for them, in their culture, ipapamigay na siya. So, just because nagka-period na siya, pwede na siya magkaroon ng pamigay. And then sometimes, kapag nalaman ng dad that the child, his daughter, already had sex with another person, susugurin niya yung family na bilhin niya na to. So dowry. It's a culture. And do you try to address it or try to IEC as much as you can or educate? There's a limit to it. So you have to really be part of that system to understand how your interventions are going to work out. So yeah, there's a lot of underserved, unserved areas, the provinces that are invisible to our data, invisible. Kung hindi ko tayo ikwento, hindi nyo malalaman yung mga ganong kinds of stories, no? So, kailangan talaga makialam.
Thank you, Doc Albert, for sharing that. Gender and also ethnicity, very important. And since you also talked about data, sino pa ba yung tatanungin natin?
Ayan,
Thank you din sana. Sino pa tatanungin natin kundi yung representative natin from PIDS? No? So, Doc Sarah, baka you can share kung paano nag-translate yung mga inequities natin in terms of data and how policy can actually be a tool to support yung mga.
So, I feel like I'm in a unique position kasi nag-start ako as a local government and then now very macro na yung lens ko. So, maganda rin na-experience namin yung DTT, I think, because once you go national or you go into government, you have that lens, you have that perspective. And I think policy, we think about policy na parang wonder drug. If maganda yung policy, okay na. Pero hindi. Half of it is really the implementation of the policy. So I'll give you examples of policies that are good, pero on the ground hindi maganda. And then I'll give you an example of a policy na hindi talaga maganda. So maraming types of policies. So an example is of a good policy na I think maganda sa ground na nakakita is yung COVID vaccination. Because COVID vaccination, yung policy no, how it should be implemented was with exclusion in mind talaga. So meron, alam niyo ba, meron, yung may may categories. So, dapat health workers first, and then elderly, and then comorbids. So, with that, parang very inclusion talaga, like, age, diba? Social determinant of age, comorbid. So, those who are really vulnerable, uunahin natin to give vaccinations. And I think on the ground, that has really helped. Because otherwise, mayor would have said, bakunahin mo muna yung family ko, gano'n. Or si politician will say, kami muna, yung friends ko muna. Pwede kasi mangyari talaga yun. But because the policy was so strict, na no, only senior citizens, and then we record it, we submitted to DOH. I think that was very substantial for me as an implementer on the ground. Now I think that is a good policy. Whoever made that, it was really well thought of, with really exclusion in mind, with the social determinants of mind. Another example of a policy na supposedly for exclusion, but was not well thought of, is yung community-based drug rehab program. So there's this thing sa national government that LGUs are supposed to implement a community-based drug rehab program where people who are listed as people who use drugs and goods would undergo this program for 6 months. 6 months pa na lectures, activities, Zumba. So when we got that policy, we were thinking, first of all, with what money? Like, what money will we use to do this? Parang hindi naman nababudgetan ng maayos. And second, with what manpower? And third, is this really even effective? Did anyone really study na doing Zumba with drug users will cure whatever it is, diba? Their drug use, or it will stop the whatever epidemic they're talking about. So, in the first place, it was pretty well thought of, and it was given to local governments to implement, and then we were forced to implement it because national policy kailangan. And in the first place, when we were doing it now, yung mga PWDs, hindi naman talaga sila persons who use drugs, parang napakhang lang sila. So sabi nung isa sa akin, pina-sign up daw siya ng papel sa barangay for jobs. So he was supposed to apply for a job, and they're saying, oh, sign this so we will contact you when we will give you a job. But it turns out, it was like a list na I am admitting that I am, watch list siya, I am admitting that I am a drug user, because he didn't know that. So ang daming ganong stories. In the first place, these PWDs that we are catering to, they're not even really users. And those who are real users, okay lang, hindi sila nasama sa list kasi powerful or kamag-anak ng politician. So I thought it was such a badly thought of policy na sayang money, sayang manpower. Now, we would go out of the RHU, we would stop our activities, our vaccinations to do this because we had to. Sayang resources. And then where does it go? Something that is not effective. So, accomplishment. So that's one way that policy really furthers, I think, exclusion, furthers inequity. And another policy, I think, that is good theoretically, but on the ground is not, is yung health facilities enhancement program. So it's a good policy if you think about it. We'll give RHUs to we'll give them facilities, which is important because facilities are expensive. And as a local government, we could not really spend on facilities. It's expensive. We don't have the budget for it. So theoretically, it's really good. But when you go on the ground, what happens to the RHUs that are built? No manpower, no electricity. So, yung LGU pa yung maglalagay ng electricity. And if you know how local government works, that's gonna take months. Like, para lang ipakabit na electricity, kailangan mo pa yung ipasok sa budget, kailangan pa yan ma-realign, all the bureaucracy behind it. So, it'll take really months. So, yung mangyayari, magkakabagyo na lang, kasi masira na lang yung bagong build, hindi pa nagagamit. So, usually that's the case. So, I think, as national policymakers, we cannot really usually policies just lack at talaga. We cannot avoid it kasi national eh. You cannot make a policy for every LGU. And this LGU does this, does that. But at least, policy has exclusion in mind, and it understands the implementation of it. It is able to I think, predict how will implementation affect the outcome of this policy. So a lot of times that isn't talked about. And because we do not have data for it, we cannot evaluate policy. So that's one thing that's so lacking in our country. We do not evaluate whether a certain policy, theoretically it's a good policy. In other countries, the policy has worked. Sige. But in our country, has it worked? Do we measure do we measure it in terms of exclusion? Do we collect data in terms of, yung mga low income ba sila ba naka-benefit from this policy? Yung mga women and children, sila ba naka-benefit from this policy? The lack of data itself is already telling to us, it's very telling na we are unable to assess whether policies are effective. And I think that's very important. We are able to, as a country, to collect that type of data. So
Thank you, I think ang gandang framework no, when you talk about health equities, no, you have to look at the policy, you have to look at the implementation. So parang tayo merong control knobs. No? Is it a good policy? Is it a bad policy? Is the implementation good or is it bad? No? And maganda yung na-highlight ni Doc Sara doon sa health facilities. No? Isa yun sa mga, I think, very important examples natin. Kasi usually when you talk to committee members, naging concern nila ay walang gamot, walang doktor doon sa mga health facilities. And now that brings me to our next panelist. Baka si Doc Hara can talk about yung paano ba talaga yung inequities in terms of access at the local level.
So I think medyo maganda na sa akin mag-tanong kasi I think yung sa akin kasi madami pa lang sectors na nagbubuo sa health. I'm sure you all know that kasi I believe health sciences, right? Health sciences students kayo, right? Okay. Some process. Okay. Main part of health is not, as you know, it's not the hingang malalim part. Okay. It's not just the stethoscope. So everything that happens for you to plan to hire people, that's part of it. To allocate budget, to establish institutions, to establish health facilities, also the supply chain management. Yun yung something na I think sa mga DPPB, something that would set us apart sa ibang mga physicians in public health in the local government setting. Kasi with us, lahat ng paligoy-ligoy, lahat ng partner, we were one-man team people. So, hindi mo kami maluloko pagdating sa reporting ng M1 ng M2. Kasi kami yung gumagawa niyan sa ground. Pag wala yung midwife, wala yung nurse. So, alam namin mag-input sa FHSIS, alam namin mag-input sa lahat ng registries ng gobyerno, may account kami dyan. In terms of operationalization, pag DPP ka, you have this lens na meron kang prioritization, na you have this parang tanggap mo na you cannot do anything, you cannot do everything all at once. So you have to focus ano ba yung may pinakamalaking impact first. So for example, hindi lang compliance, of course that's important kasi hindi tayo makaka-create sa health kung wala tayo nagko-comply. But for example, mas data-driven. I think that's the thing na kung bakit din kino-combine yung masters na, like, I think, public governance, something. Public management in health governance, right? Yeah. So sa kanila, MPMHG. So sa amin is MPH. I think si Corporation is MPH. So it's very important to have that type of further study for you to actually learn more how to analyze and apply data-driven decisions dun sa everyday life. For example, ang dami po kontra-ipagsuzul sa mga health center. Pero walang Febuxostat. Walang allopurinol. Pero pag tinignan mo sa morbidity statistics mo, ang daming may gout. So, dasal na lang tayo sa contramoxazole. It's not, well, sa mga hindi ko nakakalam, contramoxazole is a type of antibiotic, no? And Febuxostat is a type for a synthene oxidase inhibitor na type na pampagamot sa sa level ng uric acid sa blood. So, pag tinignan mo, in terms of planning, in terms of spending, I don't know kung, I'm sure lahat kami dito. Ang tingin namin sa bulak, sa isang tableta ng losartan ay pera ng gobyerno. Pag galing ka sa salat, pag galing ka sa mahirap na mga places, malalaman mo na, ay shucks, hindi ko to sasayangin kasi this is the money of the people, this is the money of the government, diba? Pinaghirapan nila yan. So, in terms of that, makikita mo na talagang lahat ng decisions mo is very holistic in terms of implementing the policies, at the same time, operationalizing kung paano siya ginagawa sa gobyerno. So, forecasting is one of what we do as well. Pangalawa is the right procurement, napakainit ngayon sa Senado at sa Congress, right? The right procurement, we do not actually practice na super bloated, okay? With GDAS or underserved or unserved areas, it's a very difficult thing because of handling and hauling. Mahirap makahanap ng supplier that would be willing to deliver medications and supplies to your area kasi malaki yung magagastos nila in terms of gas and transportation. So that's also part of the logistics that we do. Ano pa? Even turning on the genset. If it's bagyo season, no? So generator, on mo yun para hindi na-expire yung vaccines. I believe na ang daming nangyayari in that defense. And being a DTP, kahit saan ako magpunta, dala ko yun. So, after DTPB, I went to one of the most privileged cities in the Philippines. So, I worked with Makati after DTPB. Nakita ko talaga, wow, sana all talaga. Sana sa buong Pilipinas ganito. And then, I transferred to Marikina. So, from rural to urban, super urban, and then slightly urban sa Marikina, slightly rural. Diba? Kapit-bahay nila kami dito. Lahat yun, when we plan and when we do our operations, lahat yun merong lens ng lahat yun merong parang paano makakatipid pero magagawa ito. Paano gagastusin ang pera ng magiging okay. So, ano siya, it's a very, I think, interesting thing na after DTB you go into LGUs.
Thank you, Dr. Adam. I think one of the things that I picked up from your sharing is that when we talk about making sure that equity happens, there has to be a lot of technical back end that needs to be done para mangyari talaga yung equity. And of course, it also happens not only in the communities but also sa hospitals. So maybe Doc Paige can share kung paano yung how do you make sure that people have access to diagnostics and other treatment sa hospital level?
How do I make sure?
The
power. Okay. Wait lang. So before I answer the question, I just also want to say that since my experience with the program was in 2019 to 2021, January 2021. So it was during the pandemic. Also, it was 5 years ago. So my memory might be a little muddled. So just parang sorry na if parang hindi na masyadong clear yung pag-express ko na experiences ko. But with exclusion in manifesting in tertiary hospitals, for example, and comparing it to my experience as a DPD, I guess, with patho, the exclusion in diagnostics often hide in plain sight. So we often think of healthcare as the patient who is sick and the medicine that you give them so they're not sick anymore. But there's a lot of layers to it, and one of it is diagnostics. So I think with diagnostics is kind of the backbone, I guess, of healthcare, and it's also one of the first things to break when your systems fail you. So sa city kasi, I think medyo surface level yung nakikita natin with exclusion. When a patient comes to you, even in the government hospital, often the problem is the patient can't pay for the services. And so, parang you as the healthcare or the service provider, parang, okay, my problem is, hindi na matutuloy yung treatment dito kasi hindi na mabayaran or kaya hindi siya makakover ng PhilHealth niya or ng malasakit. And then, it stops there. But in the rural setting, it's more than that eh. Kasi, not only is there any hospital, kasi na-assign ako sa Lugos, which is like an island municipality. And there are no hospitals there. And if someone like needs to be admitted, sana hindi lang kailangan ID2 eh. Kasi minsan sa RHU na namin sila ina-admit for hydration lang. Pero like if someone suffers a stroke or if meron siyang mass na kailangan ng biopsy, the nearest hospital is in the next island pa. And it's like an hour or 2 hours away by boat. So, parang when it comes to like you can't compare it kasi iba pa rin talaga with the outcome. Even I think my advantage as a resident now coming from like the program is that I see each case via like a different lens kasi for them it's like andito na yung like they give us a whole, for example, nung body biopsy, like a whole leg for example, with cancer. They just see it as a case, but for you, parang iisipin mo pa like what did it take for this patient to like seek help? Kasi for most of them, pumupunta na sila sa'yo advanced na yung cancer nila, sobrang laki yung mass nila. And then, you would think, lalo na sa mga rural areas where wala silang access to a laboratory man lang, walang pang CBC doon. Wala talaga kahit ano. So, I think, what was the question again? I was just comparing, like, it's different eh. It's hard to explain unless you're there talaga. I think Doc Sarah and Doc Albert and Doc Nika, they're better at expressing what they've experienced. Kasi ako parang 5 years ago pa yun. So parang ang nasa memory ko na lang is how I felt when I was there. You know, so what was the question again? So I don't know. It's so hard to talk about like exclusion in like the rural area and parang ang pinaka-point of it is there's still a lot of things that we can and should do as healthcare providers and even you as like college students pala. I hope like hindi kasi nung college ako like very sheltered pa yung view ko of like the world and I like how I'm generation ko, Gen Z, like they're exposed na kasi with like the internet and naging podcast na ano. Pero like there's so I mean kasi I like how younger people now are exposed to like how broken the system really is. Like growing up, ang alam ko lang is what my parents tell me about like politics. And syempre don't care pa naman, don't care, parang ganyan. Pero now like you being exposed to it, I mean like there are some disadvantages to being overexposed by the internet. Pero for me like I'm really like pro-internet. Kasi you see it na eh, kahit you don't have to be there to see what's happening. And like with us, we also can use that as a platform to tell them how to do it. So sorry, sobrang layo na niya dun sa question. Pero kasi like, ang hirap nang maalala yung mga nangyari. Pero like, yeah, that's how I see it mostly, like comparing it to city versus rural. So like,
I think very important yun, you highlighted the stark difference between accessing diagnostics doon sa rural areas as well as doon sa urban areas and in a big tertiary hospital where you're working now. And I think ganun rin eh, parang when we talk about exclusion and inequities, kailangan merong diagnostic eh. We need to surface ano ba yung current situation. And I think yung panel natin for the first segment of our session just highlighted that naging diagnostic siya And then later on, in our second segment, we will talk about ano ba yung different ways on how to approach these kinds of innovations. So right now, I'll turn it over muna to the project team. Okay, so we can continue. There's the next. No? So our next segment is actually focused on responses. No? How do we address yung mga inequities na ito? So I'd like to pose this question to the group. Anyone can answer. No? How did you walk with communities no, in your different settings at saka doon sa work ninyo right now? And paano sila nasama doon sa process of them being empowered also? So anyone can start. Paano sila nasama doon sa Sige, basahin na lang natin.
Yeah, I can start.
Sige.
Alright. Recently, I just came from Naga City last week. No? So one of our tasks was to go around the different barangay health stations to talk with the barangay health workers, the midwives, and my work for Angat Buhay is a health consultant. So we're trying to usher in universal healthcare. So anyway, I was with this doctor that is the program manager for Angat Buhay. Her name is Dr. Karen Bulan. Siya yung asawa ni Miguel from Ben & Ben, pero hindi siya mahalaga sa kwento. So pumunta kami sa mga barangay health stations. No? So sa first barangay health station, we listened to the barangay health workers about their problems. Tapos beside me, si Doc Karel, as in seething siya with anger. Sinasabi niya na, bakit ganun, walang doktor dito sa Naga City, pero doon sa Metro Manila, nahihirapan maghanap ng trabaho yung mga doktor. Diba? So may maldistribution ng healthcare workers. Next barangay health station na punta kami, mga commodities naman, walang mga gamot pang NC, non-communicable diseases, or tuberculosis, or prenatal. Tapos nagagalit na naman siya na bakit ngayon? Ang daming corruption sa government, sa pera, pero hirap tayong bumili ng gamot para sa mga barangay health station. So the supply chain naman of the commodities. Tapos sa next barangay station namin, may issues kasi with the barangay captain and the barangay health workers. No? Hindi sila nagkakasundo. Gagana naman sila, bakit gano'n? Dapat nag-uusap ang mga leaders for the barangay level. No? So, it's an issue of health governance naman. So, after ng trips namin, kinamusta ko siya. Kumusta ka? And then, sinasabi niya super frustrated daw siya. Super frustrated siya sa mga narinig niya mga kwento. And I was telling her na, you're frustrated, that's good. It means, number one, you listen. And you listen very well. You listen to the problems at magkaroon ng mukha yung health systems na tinatry natin baguhin. No? So yung mga kwento na yan, mahalaga. Bawat tao may kwento at bawat kwento may kwenta. So kapag, ganda na, caption siya sa Instagram post niya. Pero totoo, no? Kasi the common problem in the dev sector is, and for some students also, we don't just go parachuting in to solve the people's problems. We have to listen to them. Kailangan natin malaman kung ano yung mga systems kung saan sila gumagalaw. And then, you work from within them, within the system, rather than from outside looking in. So, yun yung isa sa mga nag-pick up ko na intro kanina sa Laan, ang ganda, listening. You have to really listen. Expose yourself to the realities on the ground. Alamin niyo yung mga pangalan ng mga barangay health workers na ang kuha ay 50 pesos per month dahil volunteers lang sila. At ang mga midwives na casual or job orders lang sila. So, kahit inuwi, pwede silang tanggalin ng mga leaders nila. Mga ganun realities on the ground, you have to listen. So that is my answer.
Learning to walk with the community. So I was assigned to, again, an island municipality in Cebu. So were you assigned to like Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Redacted. So in Cebu, it's a Muslim community. So when I got there, actually kasi hindi Cebu yung first choice ko. my first choice was somewhere in Eastern Visayas. I don't know what the system was during your batches kung paano nag-assign. They do lang. Sa amin, you choose muna yung region na gusto mo, and then they flash the list of communities na available. And then, if marami kayo dun sa region and hindi, parang sobra kayo, some of you have to like leave that group and then choose another region until ma-fill lahat ng slots. So, me, I didn't want to be assigned in the Luzon area anymore. Kasi nga, I'm from Manila ako, born and raised in Marikina, actually. Tapos, and then I wanted somewhere like a bit far para medyo may konting adventure, but not too far na mapunta ako sa Mindanao. So, parang naka third or fourth rounds na ata ng pag-fill ng slots. Oh my God, like, nag-fill na lahat, wala na. Tapos, Barm na lang yung natira. So, it was Basilan, Mindanao, so. Then, napaisip mo kasi parang, what's the point of like applying, taking the exam, doing the interviews, and then just backing out just because hindi ka familiar or you don't like the area. And then so, like eventually, I chose the island municipality, and then there was another round of course, convincing your friends and your family to like tell you na parang this is really what I want to do. So, during that time, parang hindi ko pa masyadong naisip like, what did I have to do like, to adjust to the community? But when I was there, like, fitted pa yung naka-pants, ganyan, pero parang naka-v-neck, tapos parang we were like, unfamiliar kasi, one, hindi ako taga-Cebu. Two, I was a Catholic, so I was not familiar with the religion. And then, of course, I was a woman, so they're not really, like, an MHO na babae. I was the first MHO there. So there were no doctors there before. So, yeah, municipal health officer, sorry. Municipal health officer. And then, but like, some municipal, like, leaders were always present. So, parang sometimes, ikaw pa yung, not naman ikaw yung mayor, but like, sometimes ikaw pa yung mag-make decision sometimes. Kasi na municipal level, ikaw na, like, the PNG. So, no una, like, with what Doc Albert said, you just don't like, parachute there with your knowledge of, I don't know, medicine, even public health. I don't think anything could prepare you for the field talaga. Kahit you had previous experiences or like community work or like knowledge, you don't just go there and you think, I'm gonna make this island the best. Parang I'm gonna solve the healthcare system here. Hindi eh. Parang I think all ETTBs also experience that kind of hero complex, I guess. Starting there na parang, I'm gonna make this better. Pero, one major thing that I think all of us take from that is, mas marami kaming natutunan there. The community teaches more than we teach them. So there, with learning how to walk with them, I didn't want to like always have an interpreter, so I learned the language also. So, syempre, it wasn't required to wear a hijab, but for like certain events you had to cover. Tapos, it's an island municipality, Sony Beach, but I can't like wear the usual, so you had to like be covered pa din. Yung mga ganong little things. Rash guard lang the whole time. Also, with meron silang mga traditions na kailangan mo rin sundin because you're there, and by not participating, ikaw yung exclusion. Alam mo yun, parang you have to let them feel like you want to be there. Like, you're not just there because it's a job or because you feel like this is something that would glorify your like career. Kasi I work in the field. You have to make them feel na parte ka din, like parang ikaw, tamsud ka din, and then pag alis mo dito, tamsud ka parang you leave a piece of yourself in the island that you serve in. So yeah, I think very 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 superficial lang naman, adjusting to their traditions. But I think that's a big thing for them also. Kasi when they see na they respect our culture, they would eventually like accept you na din. Kasi for like months I felt like an outsider pa rin. Kasi nga parang no, dapat ganito, ganyan. With the Ramadan, di ba 85 usually yung hours mo, office hours mo. But you can't force them to work for the whole 8 hours kasi they had to pray pa. And then after that, may prayer pa. Di ba they pray 5 times a day, ganyan. And they don't eat it, di ba, during Ramadan. So they're so hungry and dehydrated. Tapos ikaw yung kumakain lang doon, you know. You have to adjust din. So parang ang ginawa namin, early out. Tapos I also don't show them na parang, di ba, hindi lang muna ganyan. Tapos sabay-sabay kami kumakain ng madaling araw and in sundown. So yung mga ganong bagay na you can't like impose all the time what you want for your community. Yan lang. So I think, yeah, we teach you more than we teach you.
Yung sa akin, sobrang sheltered ko kasi going there. I mean, very cowgirl naman. Kahit saan mo lagay, okay lang. Kaya din, I think, DTTV is really something that's for me. Pero ako yung, I'm looking for someone na parang would resemble how I am. Ako yung med student na naka-heels. Naka-heels. Tapos kahit wala kang tulog, magpo-blower ka, tapos kahit antok-antok ka, may pasok ka dito ng curling iron, diba? I was that med student. So, parang yung mga yung mga friends ko nung med school, sabi nila, hindi ka mabubuhay sa isla, walang blower doon. Yun yung sabi nila sa akin. Tapos, syempre, may idea of going to work. Syempre, galing ka, residency, foundation, meron ganyan. Shucks, girl, hindi siya pwede sa isla. Hindi siya pwede sa isla, matutunaw ka. Paglabas mo, parang tunaw ka na. Tapos, what I did to actually immerse, kumuha ko ng house na nasa gitna talaga ng community. The DTTV program, MOA, or contract ng LGU is to provide you with modest housing. So ano ibig sabihin nun? Roof above your head, period. Yun lang yun. Hindi sila required magbigay ng condo sa inyo, guys. Hindi ganon. So, tumira ako sa bodega ng bangka. Nakatira ako sa bodega ng bangka. Yung floor ko is lupa siya. Tapos, minsan, pagising ko may manok na dun sa ilalim. Siyempre, hindi ko pwede magpaa kasi lupa ka. Yung toilet ko is, meron naman yung like, free na binibigay. Yung maliit. Yung walang flush. Ganyan. Ayan, latrine. Ganyan. Tapos, yung walls ko is yero. Pero pagka tumingala ka, may stars kahit umaga. Kasi butas-butas yung bubong. Kasi ito sa surplus. So, ganun yung living criteria, living conditions ko sa area. Pero, like, coming from, naalala ko yung first uwi ko. Do you remember kung paano yung first uwi sa bahay? Yung pagbukas mo ng green po, may lumalabas sa tubig. Amaze ka doon. Tapos yung pag-on mo ng ilaw, may lalabas. And, most of all, pag-on mo ng TV, yung YouTube, biglang mag-a-appear agad. Hindi yung hahanap ka muna ng signal kung saan ka. Ayun, sa akin, I really immersed. Tapos, since before going into the community, mahilig ako mag-swim. So, mahilig ako mag-beach talaga. Kaya, actually, meeting ko dati. Kaya ako go sa Island Municipal. Nagmamaganda lang. Maganda lang kung beach lang ako dito. Nakakatuwa kasi wala naman ako friends nung una. Kasi I really tried to have this healthy barrier. Kasi I read a lot of books how to manage people, ganyan. Bago ka pumunta kasi, parang iniisip ko, I was so young, I was 25 when I became an image coach. Tapos yung ima-manage mo, 50 years old. So, paano ko paniniwalaan ng mga yun? So, may isa akong nabasa na sabi niya parang, do not be too familiar, ganyan, do not treat your work as family. So, wala akong parang like constant friends before, no? So, what I did was, mayroon kasing sanctuary doon. Like, it's a marine sanctuary doon sa area ko. Tapos natuwa ko, basta weekend, after hours ng holidays, nandun na ako, swimming ako doon sa area, titingin lang ako ng mga fish, nag-free dive, o diba? Dapat pala nag-upload ako. Sana YouTuber. Oo nga. Diba? Hindi na ako nag-8 to 5. Kaya lang signal. Pero the community really took care of me. Alam mo, nagulat ako doon kasi yung mga bantay dagat, dahil nakita nila na gano'n yung habits ko, dahil, well, una sa lahat, it's not safe to go free diving alone. You should always be with someone. But, sila pala, nasa malayo sila, that they are really, looking at me, kung ano daw mangyayari, malulunod daw ako. Tapos, kaya pala, tuwing pag-ahon ko, pag maglalakad na ako, biglang may dadaan na tricycle. Kasi pala, niradyo na, pauwi na si doktora. Ayan, pauwi na si doktora, ayan, naglalakad na. Kaya pala gano'n, kasi may biglang dadaan na tricycle. And I just found about it. Nung paalis na ako sa area. Na yung mga tao pala, they really took care of you, no? Ganun pala sila, kasi susungit. Joke lang, hindi tayo susungit sa pasyente. Wala tayong ganong reklamo.
Mas staff.
Basta, mas staff.
Okay. Sige. I'll give another perspective naman. So, noong 2021, we had this big typhoon, Odette. And I think if you Google it, it's like the second to Yolanda in terms of destructiveness. It was a bad time. And I was there. So, all the houses, they were destroyed. Walang kuryente for 3 months. So, wala kami kuryente. And then, walang signal for, I think, 6 months. So, imagine, kahit text, wala ako. Hindi ako makatext ng people. So, ganun ka lala. And then, for a while, walang water rin. So, what we had to do was we collected rainwater. Tapos, lagyan na lang yung chlorine pellets para medyo malinis. And then, yun yung papanligo namin. Ganun siya ka-intense. So, when you think about walking with the excluded, I think na okay, DTTV is the best you can do. Kasi nakatira ka dun you experience how hard it is, or you experience their difficulties, their hardships. But, after all that happened, nagbigay CDOH ng leave sa amin, parang disaster leave. And then I went home. And I realized there, hindi pa rin pala talaga. Because I still had my privilege na kaya kong i-escape yung difficulty. I had a choice, diba? So, if nahirapan ako, I can go home. If ayoko na, pwede ako vacation for a while and then come back. But these people, this is their lived reality. They have no escape from it. Like, no escape. Hindi sila pwedeng katulad ko na, ang hirap naman walang kuryente, uwi ko na ako. Walang ganun, kasi dun sila uuwi, diba? Sa walang kuryente. And, after that, when I was thinking about it, like we always think na it's okay now we walk with the excluded, but it's okay to acknowledge that we never really walk in their shoes. We walk with them, but not in their shoes, because you don't. With the privilege that we have to acknowledge it. We have choices. They don't have the choices that we have. So, if nangyari yung Odette, maraming tumulong sa akin. Like yung governor, hinams kami sa isang house kasi may generator. So, kami yung unang nagkaroon ng kuryente, for example. And, tinutulungan ako, like merong mga family members na nagpapadala sa akin ng stuff para hindi kami magutom. Things like that, na I had these little privileges that the rest of them did not have. And it's important to acknowledge that because as you walk with them, you would think na, I already know this, because I experienced it. I was there with them. But really you don't, because hindi ka nagutom, hindi ka nawalan ng bahay, hindi ka nawalan ng pera. Na-experience mo siya, but different yung consequences. It's a differential consequence to the same exposure, to the same vulnerability. So, it was an inconvenience for me, but for them, it was life or death. Wala silang trabaho for a while, nasira yung crops, diba? For me, it was inconvenient, walang kuryente, hassle. Or walang internet, hassle naman, di ako ka-Facebook, di ako ka-Instagram. So it was an inconvenience for me, but for them, it was really life-changing for them. And even if I was there, I was living there, meron pa rin talaga things that I do not understand. And maybe, as you go through life, I'm not asking you to be poor or to suffer, but you have to acknowledge that privilege. You still have to listen to people, even if you're with them, kasi you don't really know the full extent of what they go through. So, meron kasing tendency to have moral ascendancy na, oh, alam ko yan, because I was kite, I was laan. Alam ko na yan. I can do good policy, or I can lead. Pero if you still don't listen to people, there's still this gap that you don't address. Kasi you don't really feel what they feel until magutom ka, until ganun kang level of poverty. So it's something na you should just acknowledge as a bias, na possible bias in your head as you walk with the excluded. And even if you walk with them, which is good, you don't really fully know the full picture until you experience, you walk in their shoes. So something to think about as you go.
Hopefully, it's a reminder also for us na interested be in the development sector or pursue public health roles later on na huwag tayo mag-assume that we know kung ano yung pinagdadaan ng mga communities that we work with. There's always a nuance, and yung perspectives natin are always limited by our exposures. Siguro at this point, I'd like to open the floor if there are questions from our audience.
You can submit your questions here via the Slido. You can scan it if you want to remain anonymous. Pero we're also open if you'd raise your hand. Please introduce yourself na lang.
And the slide.
My name is Lorna, and I would like to ask, what was it like serving in the Muslim community in Sulu?
What was it like as someone who was not?
What insights and new wisdom did you get?
In Cebu. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't there that long for me, like, form like solid opinions about like the differences of the community and Muslims. I mean, there was like, syempre, mga like bawal ka pang pork, parang ganyan. Yeah. The first thing I did when I went home was go to McDonald's and order sausage McMuffins. Kasi walang pork. I don't know. Kasi I spent my first 4 years as a kid in Indonesia, which was also like a Muslim community. So I wasn't really super unfamiliar. I just knew that there were differences. I guess the cultural difference that had the most impact to me as a doctor there was that it was very, I think, patriarchal pa din. Like with Doc Albert, meron din yung sa vaccination ko, yung parang, oh no, the family planning where the husband had to decide for him. Sa amin naman yung sa MMR vaccination, when he went house to house, tapos ano pa yun, during the pandemic pa, so we went house to house in PPEs. So imagine in an island without any masyadong trees, it's gilid, so imagine how hot that. Tapos mag-house to house kami. Most of the time, the mothers were there with their kids. Siyempre, you're going to offer na parang, papabaksin ka namin yung anak nyo. And then they would tell you that they had to wait for their husband to say yes. Kasi during that time, there weren't any anti-vaxxers in Sulu. Like, di ba nagkaroon din ng ganun dito for a bit? Pero their reservations about vaccines came from like word of mouth. During that time kasi, it's campaign season. Pero parang sinasabi nila na may rumor daw sa kabilang island na may namatay dahil sa vaccine. So, kalat na yun, ganyan. So, it's so hard for you to convince them that it's not poison. Alam mo yun? Kasi parang, how would you know? Prove it to me. Ikaw nga, turo ka mo sarili mo. Kasi parang mga ganyan. So, yan. So, medyo patriarchal pa siya. If the husband wasn't there, it's still not the mom who would decide for the kid. It's the mother-in-law. So, yung mom ng husband. So, ganun. What else? The Cebu that time also had issues with armed conflict also. So, that was one. Ano ba? Like, hindi kasi siya masyado significant in terms of how it affects me personally. Pero like with the culture lang, like you had to respect their times of prayer. Like they had one in during lunchtime pa. So you had to give them extra time to have their actual lunch. Yung mga ganun. Yeah. Wala masyadong yeah, yun yung pinaka-ng patriarchal siya.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Follow-up.
Thanks for the story, because I have a fantasy series in development with one of the countries inspired by Indonesia, Malaysia, and Muslim Philippines, and I really like your direct stories. It's going to be very helpful.
You can just
Thank you
like
so much.
message it on Instagram or if you want to. Link in bio.
Professional tayo. So,
Yeah,
link
she's
in.
right.
Okay, questions from the audience before we go to the slide.
Okay, so technically, I'm Lorenzo Pala from BSPG. So first of all, I think one of the better points was the hero complex that most people don't implement.
Yeah.
And I noticed ngayon sa generation ko, this, I don't think I can say na may good influencer sa iyo. Wala nung kaibigan siya dito, di ba? Si Claudine ko. Wala nung kaibigan siya, okay, good. So basically na to, I've noticed it pala. May romanticization in the med field.
Right. Yeah.
Or they always go to this area. And I want to know yung thoughts mo dyan and how we can address that. And the second thing is the walking with the student. I do think even though may punang binili at Ayo, they're good. I noticed in the first year ko, there was this sense of poverty porn. Sorry, wherein they're glorifying it, or since a good experience working even though just like a few hours, or just 2 days, you don't get to fully experience that. And while yes, like I said, a good thing siya, there isn't that full picture. And I'd also like to add that with the advent of social media and technology, while you do see it, I do think there's still this gap between seeing it and experiencing it.
Real talk lang. So, we're not like really, real talk lang. Wala namang something na, I don't think na merong something that would make us better people just because we went to the place na ayaw puntahan ng kalimitan. We have this analogy in the Philippines that we're called mango pickers. Have you heard about that story? You heard about that? Okay, I'll tell you the story. So, kunwari merong farm, right? Sa farm, it has different sections. Merong nasa harap, it symbolizes the patients, the mangoes that are very easy to pick. So, in terms of spatial distribution, andun yung mga specialists and doctors in the metro, no? Basically the urban areas. Kaming mga DPTBs, we chose to go to the back part of the farm, full of thorns, sometimes even snakes, harmful animals, because we think that the mangoes there are just as important. No? But it doesn't make us better than those who choose yung mga nandun sa area na nasa harap lang yung pinipick nila. Why? Kasi hindi lang naman siya, you heard our stories why we went into this. It's not always dahil gusto ko na mag-serve doon dahil gusto kong tumaas yung career mo. Because you like, whether you like it or not, being a BTPD will open a lot of doors for you after you graduate. It's like a graduate program na mahirap kang tanggihan because of the respect that they give because of what you went through in serving the country. Pero we're just people who had jobs na we cared enough to just go there by choice because we have opportunities and privileges too. Imagine for me, for example, magkapamilya ako dito sa Manila, I have a child or whatever na meron akong asawa, magulang na may sakit, na kahit gusto ko mag-serve, I cannot do that because of the other confounders. But kami, we just had the privilege and the perfect timing maybe para magkaroon kami ng pagkakataon. We were not just called. We had opportunities to go there individually. So it doesn't make us heroes na parang better ako dyan sa ganyan. Yan walang content is I'm like the first class kasi siya ganyan. Diba? Hindi siya ganun. So I think mostly, to summarize lang, it is a lot of how you were raised. Yun yung una. Kasi kahit actually going into something na health science yung course mo, meron talagang something na gano'n. May pa-hero complex in some people. No? Kasi it's perceived by the community as something na mas mahirap than other courses. But if you will see, it's not always the case. No? So you have to really put your head down and you don't have to think that you're better than anyone else.
Addressing the Eurocoms, that actually fades really fast when you start the program. It either fades really fast or you have to let it go. Because if you don't, you're never going to understand your community if you still have that. Like, hindi pwedeng aalis ka doon or i-end mo yung program na you still think na parang, I saved this municipality. Kasi, for sure, the joke lang. Pero, I mean like, going in, tama naman yung sinabi ni Mika na it doesn't make you a better person. It opens doors. It also just gives you like this a wider like worldview. Kung ako, if I didn't join the program and nag-residency ako agad, I think I would be really insufferable brat, I think. Kung hindi ako nag-DTTP. It's just so different. Like comparing also, I can compare kasi I work with like my two residents who didn't work after they passed the boards and just went into residency after. I'm not saying they're insufferable, but like it's never that. It's just they just view the world so differently. Their goals are so different also from yours. Like even with me, like parang of course eventually I want to start like a lab. I might go into forensic path or not anymore. Depende. It's like a society problem naman. You're adapted. Pero your actions and like how you approach certain things and cases and social issues, makikita mo yung difference din talaga. From like, not saying like makes you a better person, it's just different. It's really different.
So parang DTTP gives you that groundedness, no? And maganda rin yung sinasabi ni Doc Karen na it's a privilege to have choices.
Yeah.
To choose to be a DTTP, hindi mo kailangan balance yung iba't ibang priorities. Very important point. Doc Albert, as a DTTP, medyo ka, hindi po kasi ako DTTP. Pero, sige, may isa po.
What was your second question?
Actually, the poverty board.
Baka ma-demonetize. Ginky, something like that. Ano yun?
Basically, it's actually the same thing. You take a community and you don't interact with them.
Okay.
Okay. Does it post about it?
No, so that you don't
okay.
we're just given questionnaires about it sometimes.
So, I think yes, it's a slippery slope na pwede siya maging performative or comedy-born, as they say. Pero how else kasi will students be able to know these things? Like, kayo, paano niyo malalaman? Unless you came from that background na hindi well-off din natin. Pero if you were sort of privileged, how else? How else will you ever interact with people who are not the same social class as you? Hindi naman kayo, di ba? Unless siguro yung orgs nyo ay things like the social civic orgs. Pero paano kung hindi yun yung interest nyo? How else? So I think it's good na rin na nabibigyan kayo ng opportunity to have these experiences. And I think what you take from it na lang is dependent na lang sa'yo. So some people, they really listen, diba? They really listen to the experiences. So I wouldn't go as far to say na abolish yan kasi poverty porn na kalabasan. But it's good na you get the experience. What you take from it na lang, if you feel good about yourself and make it performative, sa'yo na yun. Versus if
Very nuanced.
yeah, it's very nuanced. Some people kasi they really take a lot out of it na they really realize things na, oh, I have so much privilege,
Some make it
there's
content.
so much to do in this world, I have to make this my vocation, ganyan. So, there are some naman na ganun yung kalabasan. So that's a win for me.
I think it's just like a community version of marketing, but like there's a line that you cross naman. Like what they say, like we use that like for your content and you made it your personality na parang I would say that's poverty, yan yung parang poverty porn at its peak. But like using it lang to like bring awareness to other people, invite them to like if you want to experience or like if you want to walk with the communities, like okay lang naman. Again, it's very nuanced. It depends on how you use it.
So what I'm hearing is that yung DDTV or even kahit anong development initiative are value neutral, but at the same time we have to but we have to, of course, yung mga principles natin, values natin, would shape kung paano yung maximize yung mga ganang platforms. No? So, I'd like to, since we're quite short on time, I'd like to ask this question. Quick response lang siguro from our panelists. No? From Slido, there was this question. Were there times where you wanted to give up or go home? And what is it that made you push through? So, quick response lang kasi we're quite short on time. Anyone can start?
In the midst of the pandemic, daming namamatay din sa probinsya. Tapos kami din yung in charge sa isolation, quarantine, facilities. Kami rin yung in charge sa vaccination. Tapos nagagalit yung mga tao kapag nagkakaroon kami ng mga strict policies. So nagkukwentuhan kami ni Doc Sara, I guess I'll answer also for Doc Sara, na kapag may times, may phases na first San Jose, so magagalit yung mga tao, maraming namamatay, magkakaroon surge of cases. So tatawag siya sa akin na umiiyak na, ayaw ka na, after 2 months, sa akin naman mangyayari yung sa LGU, yung magka-surge, maraming mamamatay, maraming nangyayari. Tatawag naman ako sa akin, ayaw ka na. So it always has been like that, that nightmare went for months. So yes, ang daming mga times na gusto na namin umuwi. But then we stay. So I guess talaga lalabas yung passion ng isang tao, yung service commitment, and even if it's tough, and if going gets tough, wala, you still give 100% of yourself because it's good work. You're doing good work. So, ganun na lang.
Yeah, were there times na gusto mo mag-quit? A lot of times. Sa akin, there was a lot of conflict with redacted. With the leaders of the community. Like, sige na nga, sabihin ko na, pag nakita mo to, siya. But like, dati kasi yung island, diba? Imagine, it's just like an island. If you search sa Google Maps, literal like, ganun lang siya, an island. And then, like half of it si current mayor parang mga voters ni current mayor, and then the other half would be the voters of another family or like another mayor. So no, when I started there, and then nalaman niya na nag-house to house ako, or iniikot ko yung mga barangay, hindi naman siya nagalit, but like, he told me na parang, you can't do that anymore, ganyan. Gusto niya dun lang ako as a half. And like, parang, during that time, kasi, the way that they approached it, like, diba, ito si Mayor, tapos ako. Tapos yung assistant. Nakaupo kami. By the way, yung quarters ko kasi is like by the docks. So, dudungan ko like sea na siya. So, pag open ka ng door, sea na siya. Sa baba is water na siya. So, para siyang, not really a house on stilts, but like built siya with the docks. So, parang meron doon function hall din above the sea. So, doon. Tapos, kinausap niya ako in the middle of the function hall with everybody watching. Siya, tapos ako, tapos yung right-hand man niya nandito, tapos yung vice mayor nandito, and then another one, and then another one. They're all men. I think they were trying to intimidate me into not like continuing service. Or like, gusto nila may doctor doon, pero ayaw nilang pupunta ako sa kung saan-saan, basically. And it's so hard to reach the other barangays kasi iba doon, either bangka or like kailangan mo talagang, wala kasing roads doon eh. Imagine an island tapos walang roads. So parang lupa lang yon. Tapos I had to like ask pa yung mga like the police or can we borrow your sasakyan para lang maikot yun. So doon pa lang, actually I didn't want to quit but my friends wanted me to quit because they were scared for me. Pero, you know, siguro some other time na yung how I solved that. Pero, there will be a lot of times talaga gusto mo mag-quit. But, with them, diba, tumatawag sila, they call each other. I also had friends, batchmates ko. It's good if you have other people to support you and also share your goals as DPPs. Yun talaga yung nagpa-stay sa akin eh, na they were also students.
Very quick lang. Kasi diba, sabi ko sa inyo, nag-quit ako ng residency program the year before ako maging DPP. What happened to me was I applied in a lot of parang programs abroad for further studies. And then nalimutan ko na yun. Noong pumasok ako ng DTTV, kami yung parang hindi kami nakakabangon. Kasi since I'm from Calabarzon, na-hire kami January 7. January 12, pumutok yung Taal. So, andun na kami agad. January 12, for a month kami doon. After that, March, punta kami sa area around February 15, 13, ganyan. Before Valentine's. March, nakakaisang nakakaisang buwan ka pa lang, COVID naman. O, diba? Tapos, pabago-bago yung mga policies, hindi natin alam kung ano. And then, come June, hanep monkeypox. O, diba? Talagang sobrang dami. Tapos, June yun. July, nagkaroon ng outbreak ng chikungunya sa isla. Ang ano talaga, grabe yung experience namin as DPPBs that time kasi ang hirap. So, hindi ito common practice. I mean, it's a common practice pero hindi ito encouraged sa mga nanonood dito na mag-DPPB sa future. Sa group of friends namin from Calabarzon, we actually, not to glorify, have a budget from our honoraria na iniipon namin to buy things for the facility na hindi allowed by procurement. So, feeling ko, right? Like, for example, IV fluids. Hindi siya, like, actually, bawal ka mag-admit sa health center because it is a health center. Pero ano gagawin mo, papanoorin mo lang yung mga tao mamatay. So, lalo na sa area ko may cholera. Paano ka mag-manage ng gano'n, diba? So, I buy IV fluids, ganyan. And then, hindi siya maliit na amount. So, tuwing pupunta ako ng Manila or I'll ask my brother to buy stock sa Bambang and then ship it to me. Ganun yung system just to get by. I was parang today, no? I received an email from one of the programs I previously applied and then I got accepted. I got accepted and then sabi ko, naku, ito na ata yung plano ni Lord. Diba? Kasi ayoko na dito sa isla. Pagod na ako. And then I gave up so much. Ang hirap nakapasok sa residency. I gave up so much. And then, sabi ko, ito na yung sign. Kasi nakapasa ako dun sa isang program. And it's fully funded at that time. Tapos, I had parang a few days to reply to them. Meron akong pasyente na mag-asawa sila na matanda. Yung mag-asawa na yon, yung girl, pagdating sa akin, unconscious na, GCS3. Pagtingin ko ng pupil, blown na yung isa. It looked like a stroke, no, na bleed. And then, I was telling the guy, kailangan po, I want to inform you of your choices. Kailangan mo siyang dalhin sa pinakamalapit na hospital, which is a hospital that has a CT scan sa area namin is about 8 to 9 hours away. Ganun siya kalayo. And then, yung Costa. So, nung sinabi ko yun, dun sa husband, his wife is still breathing. And then sabi nung husband, sige doktora, start na ako magbuhay. It's not something na hindi niya kasi mahal yung wife niya, but because may reality siya, alam niya yung reality na no matter what he do, at kahit anong gawin niya talaga, hindi magbabago yung outcome. And then I realized, hey, pagka iniwan ko itong mga taong to, paano na? Eh hindi pa round na tanggapan na nilimas. So I stayed. I said no to the program. Baka naman, reconsider. Apply tayo ulit. And then after that, di ba, gabi yun na namatay yung wife. The morning, I was summoned in Sanggunian. And they were accusing me of basically graft and corruption. I was very mad. Kasi wala akong kinuha maski piso. Joke lang. I was so mad kasi it's not something I did. Ang kakapal na mukha nila, sila ngayon doon. And then, natatandaan ko, I rushed back to my house. Packed up all my things. And then, kumausap ako ng bankero. Nasabi ko, I'll meet you at dawn. Kasi aalis na ako. So, nung madaling araw, I think around 4 a.m., we're just waiting for the sunrise kasi para mas safe maglayag. May nakita akong maliit na na ilaw. Nasa parang wala nakakita sa akin. Nandun ako sa port, sa parang shady part. Meron dong bangka na maliit na dadaong siya. Tapos di ako, nakaganyan lang ako. Ang alala ko, ganyan. Diba? Who am I joking? Nakita niyo yung mga maliit. Nakaganyan ako. And then sabi nung isang pasyente, "Uy, doktora, saan ka pupunta? Luluwas ka? Eh sabi mo may follow-up tayo today." Sabi niya sa akin, nung nandun ako sa port na yun, sabi niya, hala, nakasabay pa naman ako dun sa inaanak ko kasi wala akong pambayad ng gas, tapos luluwas ka pala. So, long story short, I stayed. And then, it persisted na lang hanggang sa nakatapos. O, diba? Ayun lang.
Thank you so much. Daming stories talaga from our DPTVs, especially when they walk with the excluded. And from the discussion, may na-identify akong 4 P's that actually arise from the discussion. So first is 4 P's, as in yung program. So yung first P is pakikinig. No? So Doc Albert mentioned about listening. No? Tapos si Doc Page talked about yung pakikisalamuha, no? Or pakikipabuhay. Napaka-importante nun, especially kung nandun tayo sa situation na iba yung kultura ng mga kasama natin. Tapos si Doc Sarah no, talked about positionality. No? English na bigla. So, isang positionality, parang we're aware ng privileges natin, how we can impact yung mga local communities. And then si Doc Karen naman also mentioned the importance of looking at people as partners. No? So, meron dapat parity of relations with the community na katrabaho natin. So with that, maraming salamat po.
So yes, we really thank our guests, our panelists, our moderator, and our participants for coming here. But before we formally close, we move on to certificate awarding and token giving lang muna. So